Welcome to the March 21st, 2022 Grafton Board of Health meeting. As a preliminary matter, this is Karen Gwiazdowski-Govin, Chair of the Grafton Board of Health. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Dan Finn.
Dan Finn here.
Austin Magnet.
Austin Magnet present.
Bill Muller.
Bill Muller here.
And then Jen Maynard may or may not join us. I know she's not on yet. Nancy, same thing. Nancy Connors may or may not join us. And then Colleen Driscoll. Thank you.
Colleen Driscoll's here.
Thank you for joining us. Happy to have you here. So next, I'd like to open the meeting. Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
Yep, this is Dan Finn. I'd like to make a motion to open this meeting.
This is Austin Magnet. I will second that motion to open the meeting.
All right, and board members, do a roll call vote as we're all so familiar with 2 years into this.
Dan Finn, aye.
Austin Magnet, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gwiazdowski-Govin, aye. Good evening once again, everyone. This open meeting of the Grafton Board of Health is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension. It was until April 1st of 2022. Now I think it's July 15th of 2022 is the last date that I saw of the remote meeting provisions of Governor Baker's original March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the act extends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted to the town's website at www.grafton-mass.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as a reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. Tonight's meeting, there are no public hearings scheduled for this evening's meeting. For this meeting, the Grafton Board of Health is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Being a Zoom meeting, please note the meeting is being recorded and that some attendees, or in this case, all attendees, are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and that you take care not to screen share your computer because anything you broadcast could be captured by said recording of this meeting. Any supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. For any speakers that are on the agenda for a topic, I'll introduce them. After any remarks are been concluded, then I'll invite the board members to provide any comment or questions or motions. As always, please identify yourself by name when speaking. Please mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and then please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Let's see. For any response, please wait till I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. And finally, any votes on any motions made during this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. All right, I'm gonna miss going through that, what feels like 5-minute spiel when we actually are back in person again. If people didn't pick up on the sarcasm, I'm sorry. All right, so with that, the first topic on the agenda is that we have Colleen Driscoll here for the Tufts Biomedical Consultant interview. Thank you again, Colleen, for joining us. We're happy you are here and that you're interested in the role. Maybe what we did is the board prepared, it's been some years, like 2010, I think. I think I was the only board member when we first put this bylaw in place. I think I was the only board member in this group that was actually here at the time. Deb, who's no longer on the board, was there also. But we put some questions in place. So we just, so you know, Colleen, we kind of like divvied it up. So that way I'm not asking all the questions or Dan or whoever's not asking all of them. So I just kind of broke it down by total number of questions and then like 2 each. So Bill, FYI, if Jen doesn't show up, maybe you can ask the question that you had and Jen's question. With that, maybe before we jump into questions, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Colleen, background, why you're interested.
Okay, hi, thanks for having me tonight. Yeah, my name is Colleen Driscoll, and a little bit about my background is I have, you probably have a copy of my resume, but I have a bachelor's degree in biology from many years ago, and I actually worked at Pfizer for 20 years. As you know, and just in positions of increasing responsibility in the environmental health and safety department until I finally became the biosafety officer for the last 4 years there, and then went on to work in my present role at University of Massachusetts Chan Medical School, where I've been for 13 years. And it's been a great position. I've really enjoyed it. And it's just has been ballooning the amount of space and the amount of research and so forth. So I'm really enjoying my position there. I got interested in this position because I have a good friend at Tufts who John Tonkus works there. We have a lot of history together, and he just happened to call me and asked me if I was interested in doing this consultantship, and I said sure. And I'm also friends with Ben Fonts, you know, and so I know he was also doing it previously. So that's basically how I became, you know, involved in it. So.
Well, thank you. Like I said, we appreciate you, your interest, obviously, and applying for it. All right, so if everyone's all set, I'll kick it off in terms of questions. I'll say I didn't recreate the wheel totally. A lot of these are the same questions that we asked back when we first did this that, you know, Ben would have gotten asked and everything too. So what experience do you have, Colleen, with inspecting biosafety level 3 and or a select agent laboratory?
So this is, do I have to say my name every time, or shall I just answer the question?
You're fine just answering, yeah.
Okay, excellent. So I didn't know how formal you wanted me with the recording. Well, so as far as biosafety level 3 facilities go internally, I'm responsible for the select agent program. And of course, the labs themselves, making sure they comply with the appropriate regulations and so forth. And so because I'm the select agent responsible official, I deal with the CDC and the USDA because we have agents from both regulatory backgrounds. And so we have to be ready. We actually have an upcoming inspection in May. And so we're constantly auditing our own facilities. We really have a great program in place. I've also had some auditing experience, but although it wasn't having anything to do with BSL-3, but at a pharmaceutical company, I had some auditing classes and actually did an audit of a site in Italy. So yeah, that's my experience.
All right, thank you. All right, the other question I had on my list was, what is your experience of responding to and evaluating biological incidents or releases? Well, you know, hopefully there haven't been any actual ones, but even if it's a mock one, you know, fingers crossed there hasn't been any actual incident or release. And then also on top of that, knowing hopefully there's never an issue at Tufts also, but how flexible are you in terms of providing, say, a quick response if, you know, the unfortunate incident were to happen, for example, and they needed a response quickly?
Well, so depending on your definition of a release, I mean, obviously we've had releases of well, not, we've had some spills or releases that have been small in nature in BSL-2, BSL-1 labs, and, usually not in a BSL-3 lab. And so, there's been lots of incidents that I have investigated, tried to, discover the root causes for, reported to NIH when they've involved RSNA. We're very good at reporting, even near misses. We always check with NIH to make sure, if they would like us to report it or not, and then we do what they advise. So I always feel like it's better to over-report than under-report, or at least notify. And I find that builds a better relationship. But I would have to say that, yeah, it's been very few incidents or releases that we've had in the BSL-3, but when they do happen, we've had, for example, PAPRs that have stopped running. Those kind of things, like equipment failures, are the more often things that happen. But in the case of a release, we have clear procedures on how to decontaminate the spill, and those directions are easily followed, and, not to panic. That's the most important thing. And as far as responding, so I work in Worcester, as you know. I'm obviously easily notified, or I can be in touch by phone very quickly. I do live a little bit farther away, so during the off hours that would be a bit difficult. It's just for me to get there. I mean, I can obviously, I drive to Worcester every day, so it's a long commute for me. It's like an hour and a half actually each way. But yeah, I have handled that for 13 years, and so I don't foresee any issues if that's what you need.
All right. Dan, thank you. Dan, do you want to go next?
First of all, Colleen, it's a pretty impressive resume. That must have taken quite a while to put together. And regarding the travel thing, it says an hour and 24 minutes, but maybe you don't drive as fast as the average person. But so that was one of my off the chart questions. And you may have already answered this, but this first question I have is, what experience do you have with biological emergency response plans? So you actually sort of answered that, but have you seen the plan at Tufts, the general plan at Tufts? Yeah.
So no, I haven't. I haven't seen it. And so, yeah, but what I do have experience, obviously, at UMass Chan Medical School, because like I said, we're a select agent program. We're held to a really high regulatory scrutiny with our emergency response plan. So we have to have something in place, incident response plan for a lot of different, not only spills, for man-made event, like, hurricanes or snowstorms, or we have to power outages. So, we have to make sure we have like backup power, backup fans. What would we do if they went out? And so, although I haven't seen the one at Tufts, and I'd be happy to review it. We have this similar sort of setup at our school facility that we have to make sure it's in place and followed. And if it's, and continually trying to review it and or ensure that things are changed if necessary as they're upgraded and so forth.
Yeah, thanks. And that the backup systems are in play, are up to date. And then secondly, how long would you estimate that it takes on average to inspect a biosafety laboratory And what are the key elements you would look for?
Well, so I guess the question is, it depends, because it depends on first of all, the square footage of the lab, the complexity of the various pathogens that are being used, and what those pathogens are. Are there recombinants involved or not? Are there animals involved? So dependent on all those different variables and the processes in the lab. So are they doing, say, flow sorting, and that sort of thing? Or are they, what kinds of equipment is there? So I think it really hard to say, is it a suite or is it just one lab, So it depends on a lot of different factors on how long it would take. I mean, in our laboratory, we have a suite of labs, which has like 4 or 5 rooms, 3 main labs, and then some other smaller spaces for like freezer storage. And, usually we'll go in there and do an inspection and it will take us about 3 hours or so with multiple people.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then a lot of it can be done too. I feel that, by in person, looking at the space, and then afterwards by reviewing the checklists and just making sure that, you have all the proper documentation in place.
Yeah.
The facility does.
Well, that's great. Yeah, you certainly have the experience there. Thank you. I think Austin might have a question or two for you.
I do, yes. My questions seem to be more about the bylaws. It says, in relation to the Grafton bylaw processes and requirements, what would you project as a timeline for processing the permits once you've received them?
So, well, for our school, we have to get permits for both Worcester and Shrewsbury. And, I assume I have read through Grafton's. This was a while ago. We were contemplating when we were going to expand our BSL-3 lab. And we were contemplating doing some of our research in Grafton at the lab. And so I did read the bylaws, and they were a bit more complicated than the Worcester ones that we are used to using. However, I'm not sure of time frame. I really can't say, but I don't know. The inspection, I'm sure, would go relatively quickly, and then assuming that there were not too many issues to follow up on, and what I would be expected to do, I guess it depends on that.
Yeah, it probably depends on a lot of specifics of the permit too. Okay, question 2. If a need is identified to draft rules and regulations with which to administer a bylaw or to make updates to an existing bylaw, do you have any previous experience that you can draw from for that?
Can you just ask the question again? I'm sorry.
No problem at all. If a need is identified to draft rules and regulations with which to administer a bylaw or to make updates to an existing bylaw, just wondering if you have any previous experience in doing that.
Well, I would say that the experience I have working on regulations or guidance documents comes from my work with ABSA. Mostly, I'm on a committee now, a board that reviews the applications for biosafety professionals to become, either registered biosafety professionals or certified biosafety professionals. And so we have made changes just recently to the guidelines for that. So I'm very regulatory driven. Obviously, in my position for the amount of years I've been the senior biosafety officer and the responsible beneficial. I've had to do this. I've had to teach myself and learn about the select agent regulations. And our program has gone from, the first inspection when I came to UMass Chan Medical School, we had 38 findings on the first inspection when I was there, shortly after I was there. And the last inspection we had one finding that was like a low level finding. So I'm very good at reviewing regulations and, implementing, doing gap analysis and implementing things to then, avoid those gaps or fill the gaps. So if anything like that needs to be done regulatory wise, I'm sure that I could do that.
Yeah, it sounds like you know the regulations well enough that's awesome. Okay, thank you.
Bill, I think your actual question that was originally yours, we kind of already touched upon. Oh, you're on mute.
I'll come up with my own question then.
Or we can use Jennifer's question.
I would underscore that, Colleen, you have a tremendous amount of experience, and this is obviously a very highly regulated area. I think this position that we're interviewing you for is largely been developed, to protect the interests of the residents of Grafton, that these activities are going on in our community, and to give us comfort level that in fact all the necessary precautions are being taken. I know there's been a lot of publicity about labs that are down in inner city Boston, where the confines that they're in are much more restricted. Do you think that there's anything that you've learned from your experience at UMass that you could bring to Tufts? I mean, it sounds like you don't have a lot of specific knowledge about Tufts and what they're doing. There's no doubt, though, that UMass Medical School, now UMass Chan Medical School, has really become a major research institution. And we even have a Nobel laureate who got the award at a very unusually young age, given his research. I guess the question I would have is, do you think that there are things that you could bring to Tufts that would be value-added things, that would enhance their activities there? Now, again, it may be hard to say because you don't know the specifics of what they're doing, but.
Right. Well, I mean, I would have to say that it is hard to pinpoint one thing because, there's been so many things that I have done in my time in this position. Like I said before, when I first got the job, I had never, I'd never worked with anything to do with select agents before. And I'm the type of person where I am a good learner, I really, and I've really learned a lot about this program, and I've made it a very highly compliant program. And along the way, not only that, have made a lot of friendships and relationships with not only the researchers, but the facilities personnel, to ensure that the program was running very well. I think that's the most important thing, is reaching out to them and building relationships. Also with the human resources department, who does like our background checks for us, and just the police department, who you have to work with, and all different, as well as the Worcester Fire Department. So it's making, I think key relationships is really extremely important. I do know, like the RBL, so at Tufts, is a biosafety level 3, and I have a lot of experience there. I have a lot of experience working with the IBC, and have developed a great relationship with our IBC. So yeah, I guess I feel like very lucky to have this position and have learned a lot, not only in various different areas of biosafety that I would never have had the opportunity in my time at Pfizer, but here. So
Yeah, there's no doubt that your experience would be of real value to us. I guess the question is, do you have enough time to do it? We're representing the town folk of Grafton, and just it would be huge to have somebody who had so much experience kind of representing our interests.
well, so I guess that's the question is, so I'm curious because of how you guys are talking about, what is exactly the, what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking for someone to help obtain the permit, or are you looking at this as something more?
I mean, Nancy,
I'm new to the board. I don't think we're looking for something more. We're clearly looking for somebody who knows the rules and can assure us that Tufts in their well-developed program is following those rules appropriately. A lot of this obviously is driven by outside agencies, and you'd obviously much rather have one finding that's minor than 32 findings that you had when you first arrived at UMass.
Right. And so as far as like the rules go, so, that's like a part of my job that's extremely important, right? So any biosafety requirements or regulations I'm responsible for. So, bloodborne pathogen, and not only responsible for, but creating training for it and ensure people are in compliance with the requirements. And so, yeah, so, everything from bloodborne pathogen training to general biosafety training to agent-specific training. We have, emergency response information. And so, yeah, I cover it all, and I cover all the, not only the regulations covered or the guidance documents covered by the BMBL, but also the recombinant or synthetic nucleic acid requirements set forth by NIH. And, as I said, the select agent regulations. So, yeah,
Well, I think your responsibilities here would be much
yeah,
less.
they're going to jump in. I'm like, it's pretty much the main responsibilities to inspect Tufts facility
Right.
on a regular basis. And regular, I think, is every 2 years, if I remember correctly, or every year. Nancy probably knows better because she does the day-to-day piece of it.
Every
Dan?
2 years.
Every 2. Okay, that's what I thought. I'm not wrong. Dan?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we're looking for is someone that can communicate, as you obviously can. And as you said, with emergency folks, whether it's the fire department, police department, or us as a board, to be able to cooperate and communicate. And I'm pretty sure you can do that.
well, yeah, I feel like communication is really, and building relationships and networking is a very, is something that I'm do well at, because, it's been really important to me, like, as I said before, to build relationships, It's very hard to get people to do things, and especially groups like, we had like facilities. It was very difficult because there was, especially when we opened our new BSL-3 lab, they didn't understand things were going wrong. They would shut the air down while people were working in the lab, and just crazy things were happening, and we really had to pull together. And I started having meetings every 2 weeks with the facilities folks, the lab managers, and some key researchers. And, just to talk about what was happening, if they needed to do a shutdown, that we could talk about it in advance. If there was incidents, then we could review them and, discover root causes and assign actions to follow up. And those meetings are still going on. Now it's been like 7 years later, and it's so helpful to be able to still meet, monthly to talk about what needs to be done. Or the lab manager says, hey, I'm hearing this like funny noise in the ventilation. Could you check it out? So it just brings everyone together to be able to, but not only that, it's, with all different levels of, from leadership down, and I think that's really key. It's being able to communicate with everyone.
Do you have any questions for us?
Well, so I guess, so the inspection that you are looking to have done is mainly for the RBL itself, or is it for the RBL and the Tufts campus, or?
If I remember correctly, it's the RBL. It's not like the whole campus or anything.
Yes, that's correct, Karen.
Okay, and then the expected deliverable is a report of that inspection.
And then Nancy, can you, timing wise?
Ben did a report. I'm actually trying to find it and send you one so you can see what it looks like. And he did the report following the actual application that Tufts filled out. And that's how it went. I'm trying to find it. Well, there's a couple things I just sent to Colleen.
Okay, great. Trying to think if I have any other questions. And I mean, I have been in RBL before, but it's been a while. How, does anybody know the size of the space?
No,
Mm-mm.
unless I don't know, Nancy, if that happens to be in said report.
It's okay.
Yeah, I don't
I'd
know.
have to look.
I mean, I have no other questions. Does anybody else have anything else that they'd like to ask me?
Dan? I couldn't tell, Dan, if you were reaching for something or you were putting your hand up to.
I'm trying to get out the window. The one off the cuff thing. I was in Mystic this past weekend. A pharmacist friend of mine is lives in Mystic actually, and so have you been to Ford's Lobster in Noank?
I have, yes. It's a very lovely, scenic place.
Because Noank is I'm getting off the track, is actually a part of Mystic, correct?
No, it's a part of Groton.
Okay,
It's kind of confusing, but Groton, Mystic is made up of Groton and Stonington.
Right.
So we live in Mystic on the Stonington side. It's separated by a river.
okay. I have no further questions.
We're not going to grill you on the different villages that are in Grafton or anything like that, or why we have 3 zip codes, and no worries. Speaking of some interesting borders of towns and stuff.
Right.
All right.
Well, I appreciate your time and,
Karen, should we take a vote now?
Yep. I mean, we don't do it's town administrator or select board. It's been since like 2010 since we did this for the first time.
Right.
But we can at least make a recommendation by a vote.
Right.
On how we want.
I can leave the meeting if you prefer to do that.
I don't think it's necessary. So I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Colleen Driscoll as the Tufts Biomedical Consultant, nominate to the select board to appoint.
This is Austin Magnan. I will second that nomination of Colleen Driscoll to the position of the biomedical consultant. Thank you, Colleen.
Motion second, do roll call vote.
Dan Finn, aye.
Austin Magnan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye. I would add enthusiastically support.
And Karen Gwiazdowski-Govan, I also enthusiastically support. All right. Well, thank you again. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Colleen.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure meeting all of you as well.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Happy spring.
Yes. Happy spring.
Okay. So I guess I'll be hearing from someone at some point.
Yeah, I think Nancy will get over whatever information is needed to the select board side of the world. And then obviously it would go based on their meeting schedule and what they have for available timing on said schedule and stuff. So,
Okay.
Colleen, Colleen, excuse me, did you submit anything with a fee schedule?
No, that wasn't something that was discussed.
Okay. All right, I will get back to you on that also.
Okay, great. Thank you.
okay, thank you again.
All right,
Good.
bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so next topic, more nominations. 3, we'll call them routine ones. These are all, tis the season for animal inspector and assistant animal inspector nominations. So we have 3 on the agenda: Melinda McKendrick for animal inspector, Jay Huson for animal inspector, and then Keith Elms for assistant animal inspector. We do these annually unless there happens to be a change somewhere in where someone retires or decides to leave the position. So for each of these, we can't do it like one big nomination. We have to nominate individually, typical motion, second, and vote. So we have 3 of them to get through first. Dan?
Okay, I'll go first. I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Melinda McKendrick as animal inspector.
I will second that motion to nominate Melinda McKendrick as animal inspector.
All right, roll call vote, everyone.
Dan Finn, aye.
Austin Magnan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gwiazdowski-Govan, aye.
Actually, I have a question for Nancy. Is this a 2-year appointment, Nancy, or 1? Do you know?
Animal inspectors?
Yeah.
1.
Okay, annual.
Yes.
Okay. This is Dan Finn. I'd like to make a motion to nominate Jay Husson as animal inspector.
This is Austin Magnan. I will second that nomination.
All right, roll call vote.
Dan Finn, aye.
Austin Magnan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gwiazdowski-Govan, aye. All right.
And third, lastly, this is Dan Finn, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Keith Elms as Assistant Animal Inspector for the term of 1 year to the Board of Selectmen to appoint.
This is Austin Magnan. I will second that nomination for Keith Elms as Assistant Animal Inspector.
All right. Roll call vote.
Dan Finn, aye.
Austin Magnan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gustowski, Govan, aye. All right. So that's all set. So then Nancy, there's paperwork, I think, that goes with all of that once the select board, similarly, like we nominate, or is this the one, Nancy, that we actually submit the paperwork?
We submit the
That's what I
paperwork
thought. So.
on this.
I caught myself, I caught myself like 3/4 of the way of saying it. I'm so used to us nominating or something and then select board or town administrator does it. This is the one that like we actually do the paperwork. There were some questions last year about who's supposed to do the paperwork. So that's versus who does the paperwork for animal control, which FYI, we do not do the paperwork for animal control. We do the animal inspectors. And say, in case someone were to ask you, because I got asked that question this year. All right. So old new business. I had a couple things. One, sorry, again, I could not make the last meeting due to my cat's urgent care appointment that was needed. With the tobacco amended regulation that was approved, voted on by the board at the last meeting, which I think had a March 13th, correct me if I'm wrong, effective date?
14.
14th, okay. Nancy, where did the steps, is everything done, I should say? Is everything done for that since we are definitely
No.
past March 14th?
No, it is not. So the effective date will not be March 14th. Is that what you said, Dan?
Yeah, so it has to be published, I think.
No,
There's a variety of steps that need to happen.
Okay.
right. I have to do that.
And the other one I had I was gonna bring up during the last meeting. Village Dairy's tobacco violation that we discussed early March, maybe it was February at this point. We had said that they would receive a $300 fine per the regulations. That was the standard penalty for what happened with them, and they would be invited to an upcoming meeting. Nancy, did they get their fine?
They did,
Okay. Did they pay their fine?
not yet.
Did they get invited to a meeting yet?
Nope, but they will because now that I don't have payment, I will add that to the invitation.
All right. Thank you. I don't have any mail or correspondence that I saw. Oh, Dan.
Yeah, I just have one thing to mention. Just this morning, I was contacted by a veterinarian and professor at Tufts, and she said that it's taken some time, but they're still very interested in providing service at a rabies vaccination clinic to the town with a couple of students. And I'll be in touch with Nancy to look at dates or when they're available, but I'm thinking it might be late April or May, more like May probably. So we might actually have a rabies clinic after all. I'll have more information at the next meeting.
Good. It'd be
Okay.
nice if we, sorry, Nancy. No, it'd be nice if we can have one again.
Right? For those cats.
Yeah, the cats, the dogs. I don't know. We find out because the ones we used to offer, Dr. Rogers would do ferrets also. Not that I remember a ferret coming on the shifts that I helped out, but it was offered. Just saying.
Dan, if you could check if, I think these clinics have to be in the beginning of April.
Okay. I don't know who governs that, but I'll be in touch with you later this week.
Okay.
I speak with their availability too.
Okay.
All right. So no mail or correspondence that I saw. Upcoming meetings, April 4th, May 2nd, June 6th. I mentioned originally the expiration date for the we can still have remote meetings per the governor's orders was, I think, April 1st. So we would have had to do something for April 4th. Now that's been pushed off to, I think, mid-July, early July, whatever, somewhere in July. So we don't have to scramble to try to book a room for April 4th. We can decide what we want to do, especially I will say variant BA.2 is starting to make its way, it's across the pond and it's definitely here, they're saying. So that's the second Omicron, the stealth Omicron. Because they're seeing waves of it over in Europe and now it's starting to make its way back over here again. So they don't know yet. It's not like it's skyrocketing for cases or anything. But just a heads up that we don't know, obviously, what will come of that yet. So,
Karen, would you
unfortunately,
like me to book the rooms so we can always cancel?
yeah, I
And
mean,
do it.
see if there's anything for April 4th. I know you were already struggling when we didn't know there was the option of it moving out to July.
There is nothing for April 4th.
All right. So yeah, maybe see at least May 2nd and June 6th. And like you said, if, you know, depending on what the world is like then or how comfortable we are, we can always keep it at least remote. At least we know we have that option at this point still to keep it remote.
Very good.
So this is Dan. I'd like to make a motion to close this meeting.
This is Austin Magnan. I will second the motion to close the meeting.
All right. Roll call vote.
And Finn, aye.
Austin Magnan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gwiazdowski-Govin, aye.